Hey everyone, on April the 30th, 2023, we got a new world champion called Ding Liren, who is a fantastic player from China. And if I had to use one word to summarize what made him a world champion, that would definitely be resilience. But before we talk about Ding Liren, let's rewind a little bit. Former world champion Magnus Carlsen surprised everyone when he declined to defend his world championship title against the winner of the Candidates Tournament 2022, Ian Nepomniachtchi, also known as Nepo. And thanks to that, Ding Liren, who finished second in the Candidates Tournament, was paired against Nepo to determine the next world champion. So the 2023 World Chess Championship started in Astana, Kazakhstan on the 9th of April. And things started quite badly for Ding. In the first game, he barely managed to get a draw. He even said that he was not feeling well.
What is your overall feeling after the game?
No, unhappy. I feel a bit depressed.
And then in the second game, Nepo won with the black pieces in style. So the match was quite one-sided and many were already choosing Nepo as the next world champion. But in the fourth game, Ding played a fantastical positional game that I have covered in another video. And after that, more very exciting games were played. In the next 3 games, we got 3 more decisive results, where Nepo got a 1-point advantage, and by the start of game 12, Nepo was leading with a 1-point advantage, 6-5, and we got the following position. By this point, only 3 games remained. If Nepo kept his advantage until game 14, he would be the world champion. And we got the following position where Ding plays as white, and we get a very complicated position, which on one hand is good news for Ding because he really needed to score to win a game before game 14. But on the other hand, this position is actually favorable for black. So he got a complicated position, but a worse one. In this position, white doesn't seem to have any clear plans, whereas black's play is actually quite straightforward. Black might have ideas to bring the other rook to the g file and then go f5, trying to open more lines against white's king. There might also be an idea to go f3, activating this bishop, so it is easier to attack white's king. And here Ding managed to complicate the game, which already shows his fighting spirit, and went c4. And here black captured on c4, which is a good move because after queen takes and knight to f3, black is forking these 2 rooks and winning material. That's why Ding played the move queen to c3, and now this rook on g6 is attacked, and this pawn on c4 is attacked. This is not sound, but from a practical point of view, what Ding is doing is very interesting because Ding is trying to complicate the position as much as possible, even if this position is actually winning for black. Because here Nepo played the correct move b5, leaving the rook on g6. The point is that after bishop takes and pawn takes, now this knight is dropped, so black is going to win material because black is going to get 2 minor pieces for a rook in this line. So after b5 we get this position on which black has an objectively winning position. If black wins this game, then Nepo would get a 2-point lead with 2 more games to go. So the match would most likely be over if Nepo had won this game, but now we see how resilient Ding was. He complicated the game as much as possible and even managed to win the game. So here he went a4, and here Nepo already played a move that from a practical point of view I think was not very good. He went b4. Here the simple a6 just keeps the position together. Black has an extra pawn and even the better position because black is the one that can attack here. Just want to mention that the idea of d5 in these positions doesn't work, even though it gives a check. Black can easily block the check with the move e5, and now black will continue with the idea to attack white's king. But here Nepo went b4. He was definitely under pressure because a win here would mean a lot for him, just giving the pawn c4, and now he went rook a to g8, and here black had a win, but it was just very hard to play this over the board. The idea was that knight to f3 is a winning move, but black had to see a lot in advance. The first idea is that black is forking these 2 rooks, but here white has the move queen to c6, and we see how we get a lot of loose pieces, so black has to assess this position correctly, which is definitely not easy. So here the point is that after knight takes, black is winning in all lines. Here white has to take the rook on a8. If white captures the bishop, then knight takes c2, wins material for black. Or if white takes on g6 or captures the knight, then after rook to d8, black is getting a material advantage. So queen takes is the most logical follow-up here, and after rook to g8 and queen to c6, keeping an eye on the bishop. Now black seems to have many pieces hanging. The position still looks very complicated, but here black had this very strong move, queen to h4, with the idea to capture on h3, giving a checkmate. So these were some of the lines that could have occurred in this game, and this game and many other games were extremely wild games, so this match was very exciting. So instead of knight to f3, which would have probably made Nepo the world champion, here Nepo continued with rook a to g8, and after queen to c6, here Nepo played bishop to b8, which makes a lot of sense, but here there was another very cold-blooded move, which was knight to f5. Again, a move which is probably not a human move to make in a game, placing a knight on a square where it can be captured by a pawn, also pinning a knight against a rook, but the idea is that black gets ideas to go queen to h4, again attacking this pawn, so this was another very strong continuation for black. And after bishop to b8, in this very wild position, here Ding played queen to b7, but actually here, taking the rook was a strong move for white because after pawn takes, here the move d5 is actually quite strong, even though white gives the knight on h5, after pawn takes, white is getting very active, and now it's black's king, the one who is going to suffer. Again, very complicated lines that occurred not only in this game, but in other games as well. And after bishop to b8, queen to b7, here knight to f5 was still very strong, but Nepo played rook to h6, and after bishop to e4, now we get a very complicated position where Nepo collapsed very shortly. But even from a practical point of view, it's already very hard for black to make sensible moves. Here after rook to f8, queen takes b4, queen to d8, now white is even a pawn up. And after queen to c3, knight to g6, bishop to g2, queen to h4, rook to e2. In this complicated position, Nepo completely collapsed and went f5. The idea is pretty clear that black wants to attack, but after the simple rook takes c6, d5 is a huge threat, and the game is basically over. Here Nepo tried taking on h5, but the idea is that after pawn takes, d5, it gives a check, but it also threatens queen to g7 checkmate, and if black wants to block the check after rook takes c5, black is just winning material and still attacking black's king. And after rook takes h5, the game was shortly over. After pawn takes, queen takes, d5, king to g8, and d6. So here white gets more material and still keeps the initiative, so here Nepo resigned. So this was a huge victory for Ding, and the next two classical games were hard-fought draws. So that's why after these 14 games, tiebreak games with faster time controls had to be played. That's why they played 4 rapid games with 25 minutes per side and a 10-second increment starting from move 1. And the first 3 games were also very hard-fought draws. And in the 4th game of this rapid match, we got the following position. Again, a very complicated position. Here, black has an extra pawn, but black's king is more exposed. So here Nepo went queen to e4. And in this position, the idea is that if black moves the king to the 8th rank, for example to g8, white can continue chasing the king with checks. But here Ding, who only had a little over a minute on the clock, bravely played the move rook to g6. So self-pinning this rook against the queen, and the position is still objectively within equality, but white has to be very precise. So this was a very good decision made by Ding. And here Nepo already made the first inaccuracy, or at least a move that I didn't understand. He went queen to f5. It was probably better to go h4 straight away, with the idea to have h5 in some lines, or trying to provoke h5 at black, which would weaken black's king a bit more. But after queen to f5, now black can play the move c4, which is a very strong move, and here after h4, Ding went queen to d3, and this will break the pin. I just want to mention that in this position, white had a way to save the game that is something that might not be found even in a classical game, which was to go queen to f4, attacking the pawn, forcing c3, and now going back to f5. And the point is that black will not have queen to d3 ideas anymore, because the pawn is on c3 and not on c4. So this was just a very weird way to save the game. Because after h4 and queen to d3, now black breaks the pin and gets a winning position. The point is that after the trade, this ending is just winning for black. Black gets two very strong pass pawns. Nepo tried queen to f3, rook to f6, queen to g4, c3, just pushing the pass pawn, and after rook to d1, queen to g6, queen to c8, rook to c6, and queen to a8. This was actually a good bluff by Nepo, because here the move c2 looks very tempting, and it was actually quite a good move. Here Ding played rook to d6, giving white some chances, but after c2, probably Ding didn't have enough time to calculate the position after rook to d8, planning to attack black's king, but here black can even force a trade of queens after promoting, giving a check, and after bishop takes and rook takes, king to h2 and queen to c6 is actually quite strong, planning to go queen to h1 or to trade queens, and here white only gets one check, but after king to g6, black simply gets a material advantage and the game is just over. But this was a rapid game, so it was very difficult to calculate long lines. That's why Ding played the safe rook to d6, trading rooks. Amazingly, now white gets a chance to save the game after queen to e4, queen to g6, queen to c4, queen to b1, king to h2 and h4, just pushing the pass pawns, bishop to d4, a3, and in this position Nepo went queen to c7, planning to give a checkmate, but this, as we see, won't work, and here Nepo again had an amazing resource to save the game, which was bishop takes, and after king takes, queen to c7. In this line, white gets a perpetual check. Again, very hard to calculate the lines here, because black has a lot of options, but the main idea is that black's pieces are far away on the queen side, and additionally, if the king wants to go to the 8th rank, here white gets this very strong idea of queen to b8, giving this check, but also pinning the bishop on b4. That's why here the move bishop to f8 doesn't work, because it would simply hang the queen on b1. So that was a way to save the game, definitely not an easy way to save the game, but after queen to c7, now the game is pretty much over, because queen to g6 just covers the checkmate, and now black has ideas to push the pawns. So after queen to c4, c2, bishop to e3, now it's just a matter of technique, bishop to d6, king to g2, h5. The game continued a few moves, but the result was not in doubt. Here Nepo tried the desperate g4, and after pawn takes h5, queen to f5, keeping an eye on the c2 pawn, and after queen to d5, g3, all of black pawns are moving forward. Here white tried f2, pinning the bishop, but after a2, plan to promote, queen takes, and bishop takes. Here Nepo had enough and resigned, and this was the first time in the whole match where Ding got the lead, but it was the moment where he became world champion. Quite tough for Nepo, who is a fantastic player and also played some very nice games throughout the match. So I hope that you liked this World Championship match. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. This will help my channel a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.